we have a remarkable phenomena. We now spend, again, the numbers are fuzzy, but we now spend about $1 trillion out of a $3 trillion budget of the United States government. We spend about $1 trillion on the military. This is staggering, 1/3 of what the government spends. And that includes everything. It's extraordinary. And why does that happen? Well, you might be interested to know that almost every year, the president sends a message to the House of Representatives requesting a certain amount of money in the budget for the military. He is the commander-in-chief, and that's part of his job. And in most years, the Congress allocates to the military more than the military, through the president, has requested. In other words, the elected representatives in the House and the Senate are so eager to do what the military want, to please the military, that they give the military more than the military requests. The military always requests more each year than the year before, but they get even more than they request in each budget, which is why the budget is large. We do know the following. For those of you who've never seen this statistic, think about it. The United States spends more on its military than the next 9 countries combined do. And most of those 9 countries are allies of the United States. The only 2 among them that are not allies are China and Russia. All right. But the United States spends more than China, Russia, and 7 others combined. So there's no contest in terms of who has the overwhelming military superiority, if you like. The Chinese keep quiet about their military, probably because it is much smaller, and of course, because they don't want the United States to know. Although I guess my guess would be the United States knows quite a bit. Why does the United States give so much to the military? Well, long ago, you all remember, because it's repeated all the time, President Eisenhower, upon leaving office, warned the American people to beware of what he called the military-industrial complex, the vast number of businesses in America who produce something that the Defense Department buys, and who therefore depend on the budget of the Defense Department to sell whatever it is they produce. Over the last half century, those factories producing for the military have somehow found their way to exist in every one of the 50 states, which means in every state of the country, there is a core of businesses and workers who have jobs in those businesses that are active endorsers and boosters for the defense budget. It becomes very difficult for congressmen and women or senators to be critical or oppositional to the defense budget, because it will be immediately, that person would be immediately confronted by his or her constituents, good numbers of them, with money from the companies that are affected, pushing against such a politician, hoping to replace him or her with someone who's friendlier to the military. What the military say to these people, how much of all this is coordinated, I don't know. I would be very surprised if it weren't highly and well coordinated. And it will help you to understand why, for example, I'll pick one, Bernie Sanders, with whom I would guess you are comfortable and you appreciate that he's there and the initiatives he's taken. I certainly do. But if you look at his record on defense spending, he's with that defense all the time. He does not. And I suspect He's a man of principle, but I suspect he understands that it would be dangerous for him politically to be an opponent. Beyond, I mean, he makes some critical comments, but he's very careful, very moderated in what he says. And you'll see that across the board, because this is an entrenched process. You know, it's one hand washes the other. The military send contracts and jobs and profits to all these companies, and it wants in return not just the products those companies produce, but the political support so that the Defense Department has the money to send them in the contracts. So this is a very nice arrangement. It's a little bit like the medical industrial complex in the United States. This works in a similar way. You have four industries getting together to have power: doctors, hospitals, drug and device makers, and medical insurers. They get together and they make sure they have organized their supporters, doctors, hospitals, and all of that in virtually every state, to make sure that we don't have a national health insurance program the way every other industrialized country does. They are very profitable. We pay more for medical care in the United States as a percentage of our GDP, roughly 18, 19%, than any other country. Nobody's even close. And our medical performance, very mediocre. Longevity, how long we live, has been falling for the last 3 or 4 years. Markedly lower than in Cubans, apropos the earlier question, live longer than Americans. They, by the way, have a very good medical system. It's one of the things they excel at. But the United States has been able to prevent that because that group of four industries operates a medical industrial complex that is politically powerful by replicating the military industrial complex, by having people in every jurisdiction organized, ready to go, to make life very difficult for any politician who might want to go in that direction. So you can have politicians who tell you privately, I've had this repeatedly, that they're in favor, of course we should have socialized medicine, but I'll never say a word about that. He said, if I did, it wouldn't get you anything. I'd vote, I'd say something, and in the next election, they would replace me with someone who will do the opposite. So, I mean, other than the exercise, we wouldn't get a lasting effect. They're basically telling us that there's a lock on this system, and a handful of corporations are in a very powerful position, which is something I assume you already know.